Hello, everybody. What's up? How's it doing? How you doing? How's everybody doing today? Welcome to the stream. Excited to be here. Hope you guys are having a good weekend. Um yeah, this is so today I'm doing a stream where I had the idea like early in the week, and then I spent the next like 6 or 7 days working on it nonstop. Like I've just been putting together aspects of this stream constantly, like during my downtime at work, when I was home, when I should have been sleeping. So I'm excited about this, and I hope it's not a disaster. Today is the versus Capcom stream. Um, why don't I just pull stuff up? Why don't I? Let's go where this works. Okay. Feeling I wasn't gonna nail that on my first try. Got pretty close to that. It's not bad for that being a different browser window that I repurposed. So let's see here. Okay, let's see here. Stand by, stand by. Okay. Okay, that's looking pretty all right. All right, so here's what's happening. Here's how this is gonna go. Um, Today's a roster building stream. I've prepared 4 rosters for different versus Capcom games. Uh, why have I done this? Well, um, around a week ago, Capcom put up a poll. It was basically like, "Hey, what franchises are you interested in us reviving? What remasters are you interested in us doing? What remakes are you interested in us doing?" And one of the options on their poll was basically make more versus Capcom games, um, which is, you know, a franchise that has been on and off dormant for them, and a franchise that we haven't seen continue since Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which did very badly. However, recently Street Fighter did very good, and it's given me hope. It's given me hope that Street Fighter 6's success will encourage Capcom to make more fighting games. So, I got excited about that prospect. I asked my Discord, my Patreon Discord contributors, um, if I were to build a roster for Blank versus Capcom, what company do you want to see filled into that blank? And I made this wheel largely based off of their answers. Shonen Jump is for me, and the other three uh, are kind of the most enthusiastically requested companies. So we have Square Enix versus Capcom, DreamWorks versus Capcom. Blup, dip, yep, yep. We have Square Enix versus Capcom, DreamWorks versus Capcom, Shonen Jump versus Capcom, and Netflix versus Capcom. And yeah, we're just gonna decide which roster I build first with a good old fashioned wheel spin. That's the way we'll do it. And and then you'll get to see the fruits of my labor because uh whether or not whether or not they're good fruits, I sure bore them. DreamWorks and not Pixar is kind of surprising. Yeah, well, yeah, DreamWorks was requested, Pixar wasn't. And and honestly, like, so neither are gonna happen in a world that makes sense, right? But I feel like it's more likely that DreamWorks would give the license to Capcom than Pixar, you know? Cuz cuz the way I see the Pixar conversation going is like, someone going up to Bob Iger and being like, "Hey, Capcom wants to team up with Pixar to make a fighting game." And Bob Iger will go, "What the fuck is a Capcom?" And they'll go, "Capcom, one of our other properties, Marvel, they did fighting games with Marvel for a while." Oh, you mean that Oh, you mean Infinite. You mean that one that lost us money? You mean that one that sold badly? Yeah, that game. They want to license another of our properties to make another fighting game. They swear it'll be good this time. And then Bob Iger hangs up. That's how I see that going. DreamWorks, I see them approaching that. Like DreamWorks is like, "Oh yeah, we'll give our properties to Game Mill Entertainment and not give a shit." Game Mill Entertainment does not treat their licenses well. When Game Mill Entertainment makes a game that's decent, like Nickelodeon All Star Brawl, it's entirely due to the strength of the dev and kind of in spite of them running it. Anyway, I've already gone off on a tangent. So so yeah, that's that's where we're at. Let's spin this this bitch, shall we? What roster am I going to build first? Netflix versus Capcom is up first. So I'll be building probably at least two rosters tonight, right? I want to run the whole stream time. I want to go to at least 11 Central. Um so so yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back to the wheel. But unless this is a disaster and takes me so much longer than I thought. But we're gonna start with Netflix versus Capcom. And when I come back, the wheel spins will be longer. That was a very short anticlimactic wheel spin. Okay. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna remove Netflix from the wheel. And I'm just gonna bake that into the settings right away. Next time we'll do a 45-second spin. Okay. Oh, hey, what up? Oh, hey! Hey, what up? You came just in time. Garrett, the guy that requested Netflix versus Capcom, just entered chat. Let's begin. So, all right, here's how I'm handling all my rosters. Uh I've decided that basically Capcom, right? This is basically going with the idea that Capcom is making a new versus Capcom game. They're actually you can't believe it made the cut. Netflix was a fever dream request. It was a fever dream request. And honestly, the more I looked into it, the more excited I got about building this roster. So all these rosters I'm going to build, I'm approaching with the idea that Capcom is actually giving this an earnest shot. They're going to, give it as many bells and whistles as possible, right? They're going to give it not quite the Street Fighter 6 treatment, but maybe like a notch or two under that budget. And like basically this is Capcom making a good versus Capcom game, making it within a few years, but that means that the roster isn't going to be huge, right? That means that the roster won't be huge. Big Mouth versus Street Fighter. Let's go. I'll say this up front. Um, I refuse to put any Big Mouth characters in the roster on principle. I think if Netflix ever made a deal with Capcom, there's a decent chance that Big Mouth would be in there. But I did not want to look at those faces for the next 2 hours, so I refused. Uh, um, but yeah, that means that each roster is going to be 15 characters on each side. For funsies, each side will have a boss character that will be uh, like each of those characters will be like a boss in the story mode, and then generally those two bosses will either like team up or fuse or merge somehow to create an unplayable final boss in at the end of the story mode, kind of like Ultron Sigma in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Um, I thought that Ultron Sigma was like one of the cool things about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. I thought that was a cool idea, having the two characters from different sides fuse and become one thing. So so there'll be stuff like that in my pitch for these versus Capcom games. And yeah, so 15 characters on each side base launch roster, and then I have 2 seasons of DLC prepared for each game. Two seasons, 6 characters each season. So the final roster size of every versus Capcom roster I have prepared will be 42 characters or 21 characters per side. As much fun as an Arrested Development or BoJack Horseman rep would be, I'm gonna say no chance for those. So this is kind of a great segue. Netflix was really tough, really interesting to make a versus Capcom roster for, because Netflix, by kind of their nature, doesn't actually fully own a lot of properties. Almost every Netflix original that they make is generally partially owned by the people that made it, and a lot of the time it's just like fucking licensed, right? So basically, as a rule, Netflix versus Capcom, you're mostly not going to see straight up licensed properties, right? Sonic Prime will not be making an appearance here. I thought of stuff like Umbrella Academy, but um but Umbrella Academy is based off of a DC comic book, right? WB is not going to play ball with Netflix on this versus Capcom game. There will be some license stuff, but generally, kind of the question I ask myself is, if Netflix is putting a licensed property in their game, are the owners going to want to play ball? Are they going to want to be like, yeah, not only can you adapt this into a video game, but you can collaborate with a whole other company with it, right? So like Castlevania the anime is not in here because Konami would not want Netflix to loan the series to their competitor. God, this was such a yeah. As you can see, this was a trip to make a roster for, just based on those rules. But speaking of rules, I I also gave myself like kind of guidelines and rule sets for each game, right? So let's pull up the guidelines for Netflix versus Capcom. You're sorry for recommending it. Honestly, this is one of my favorite rosters that I put together. Uh, and I think it's a great one to start with. So yeah, I kind of thought about the rules and stuff for each game, right? So Netflix versus Capcom. Netflix versus Capcom will be 2v2, right? I kind of figured that they wouldn't want to kind of overcomplicate it. They wouldn't want to make it a 3v3 and make it like really execution based. Netflix is going to have more of a casual audience. They're going to want it to be easier for people to get into. Each versus Capcom game has a key mechanic, a different key mechanic. Netflix is pretty simple. It's something that I'm calling a traumatic event, and basically like that in Netflix versus Capcom, when one of your characters gets knocked out, the remaining character will like get super powered. Basically, they'll get an HP boost. Their meter will build faster, and their attacks will hit a little harder for a limited period of time. I base this off of the fact that a lot of Netflix properties just give their characters a lot of drama. So that's the key mechanic. My character guidelines. This is basically the mindset that I drafted characters with for each side, right? Kind of based mainly off of the property that Capcom is collaborating with. So for Netflix versus Capcom, I kind of looked at a lot of kind of like gritty and dark characters. I pulled characters like Capcom characters from like M-rated games, and generally like the character should be realistic. Characters that you would be likely to kind of see in real life, right? With some exceptions, because Netflix does do some unrealistic cartoony stuff also, but mostly like Netflix is going to be a lot more grounded as a property than something like DreamWorks or Shonen Jump. So this is kind of like the most grounded a Capcom roster is going to get. And that was really fun and interesting to put together. Um, Sean, is it cool if I pull your playlist up? Also, I feel like you've given me unlimited permission to play your music on my stream, but it's when you're here, it's nice to just ask you. Feel free to do so anytime. Cool. I will remember that going forward. How's the tunes? Little loud? Is it drowning me out at all? Actually, I'm having trouble thinking at the current volume. How's that? How's that going? Need any adjustments? Is this setting the tone for Netflix versus Capcom properly? Tune's good? Okay, great. Volume seems fine. Great. Good, good, good. Okay. Very indicative of traumatic event to you. Perfect. All right. Well, yeah. I'll just turn the. I feel like I should have the guidelines up in some capacity, but it's hard to make them fit and still be visible. We'll just do that. Okay. So let's start. Um. So, um, Marvel versus Capcom games have a few Capcom staples, a few characters that show up in almost every single versus Capcom game. And in most of these, I'm probably going to start with those characters. I'm probably going to start with the staple characters. But I'm going to start with some Netflix characters first this time, because I feel like there's some obvious ones, right? I feel like there's one Netflix character that's kind of a no-brainer, and we'll build from there. So, alright, first character we'll be putting up. And chat called it immediately. 11. Yeah, this kind of goes out with saying 11 from Stranger Things. She would be one of the faces of the game, right? The story mode would kind of be very heavily from her perspective and the people she teams up with. And yeah, like she's kind of be one of the most like marketed, heavily featured characters in the game, which makes sense. Like she's pretty iconic, you know, and she could have a pretty cool power set of like having like a lot of kind of like mid-range grabs and stuff that aren't quite grabs. You'd be able to block them, but kind of like telekinesising people around the stage, and not just like grabbing people, but also like bringing debris onto the screen and that kind of thing, right? Yeah, I think she'd be pretty cool. You almost suggested STX Capcom, but you figured it'd be more fun to expand to Netflix in general. Oh, Stranger Things X Capcom. And you wouldn't blame me. Well, yeah, I'm gonna. We'll get to other characters. You're mentioning other characters. I'll get to other characters. But yeah, let's get 11. Down here. Oh, no, not. Not 45, was it? Hold on. Gotta pull something up. Just gotta remember my size chart here, my little size. Oh, that is. Was it 150? Alright, that looks about right. Maybe it's more like. Right, okay, yeah. I'm kind of remembering now. Sorry, bear with me. I had to do a lot of, there's a lot that went into making this stream, so hopefully you guys enjoy. Also, there's not really any way I can fix this, but if you're watching this on, like, on a full screen thing, are these icons too small? And if they are, don't worry, I'll be showing everything full size before I shrink it down. Copy, transform. Okay. So so the thing is, like, yeah, obviously we're going to have Stranger Things on here. Actually, let's show the next Netflix character first, shall we? Hopper. This also feels like kind of a no-brainer, right? He yeah, kind of your kind of your your like gun-based bruiser character. Full screen on phone, they're totally legible. You done good. Oh yeah, nice. Happy to hear that. Um and uh and yeah, like obviously it's going to be him watching over 11 during a lot of the story mode, right? Yeah, so obvious and so base. Yeah, this felt like kind of like an easy pick, but you know, yeah, here he is, pretty easy. Yep. So okay. So Opera 11. So yeah, so what how do I do that on the Capcom side, right? Like what complements Stranger Things, what complements stuff like 11 and Hopper? And my answer to that question is Resident Evil. So so you're going to see a lot of team ups that focus on Street Fighter, you know? Like obviously a lot of franchises from other companies are going to be teaming up with a Street Fighter and interacting with Street Fighter. And Netflix versus Capcom, uh Resident Evil felt like the fit, you know? It felt like the thing that would mesh really well with Stranger Things. So, a lot of the Netflix versus Capcom story is uh going to be, you know, Resident Evil characters and Stranger Things characters kind of teaming up to deal with a lot of dark and gritty things that are happening. So yeah, Jill Valentine also. Um Honestly, this goes hard as fuck already would kill for a Stranger Things and Resident Evil crossover. Yeah. So so Jill, that was obviously Jill from Remake 3. I forgot to actually focus on Jill herself. That was Jill from 3 Remake. So she would pull a lot from 3 for her moveset. I haven't played 3 personally. Uh but Sean showed me a pretty dope uh screenshot of her fucking up Nemesis with a big ass electric railgun or something. So that'd be her super. Some interesting predictions for the final boss fusion. Um, I'll get to that. I won't say whether you're right or wrong, but I do like that. I do like that prediction. Um, and alongside Jill, so the main team is gonna be in the story is gonna be 11, Hopper, Jill, and Leon Kennedy. I think this is designed from 4 remake. Um, and yeah, like while Jill kind of like will use like her pistol and like pull a little from like her MVC 2 move set and like also do some remake 3 stuff. Leon will focus on remake 4. I feel like he will have like a big ass shotgun, right? And and kind of like be kind of have a bit of Chris Redfield's kit, but also be his own thing on top of that. Like be a bit more nimble, be kind of like, you know, he's not as buff or intense, and that will be reflected in his moveset. Capcom putting Leon in a versus game is the most unbelievable thing about this idea. Here's the thing. I think they just haven't gotten around to it yet. I think it'll happen one day, especially if they make a versus game in the next 3 years. I think because like every time versus Capcom has been a thing, like every time a versus Capcom game would come out, the Resident Evil game released around that time would happen to be one that didn't focus on Leon. So I think his time to shine could be now, you know? 4 Remake came out pretty recently. He's obviously kind of a glaring omission. I think it'll happen. Ironically, Joe and Leon haven't ever met in the games, but they do feel to you like the Series 2 flagship characters, so you support this. Nice. Okay. Alright, so that's, so that's Stranger Things and Resident Evil 4 now. It's time for more Frank West. Um, actually, here's a fun fact. Frank West was on an early draft of this roster, and I removed him because I removed him for being kind of boring, honestly. like like he fits to an extent, but there were other characters I wanted more, so he ended up slipping off of the Capcom side. So yeah, that's yeah. We'll move on from Stranger Things and Resident Evil for a bit. Let's introduce another Netflix franchise. Like I do like Dead Rising and I do like Frank, but like I also kind of feel like there's kind of there's kind of this vibe that Capcom really wanted Frank West and Dead Rising to be like the next big thing, you know? And it never quite got there, and there was always kind of a level in of desperation in the degree to which they pushed Frank, you know? Like he wasn't quite the icon they tried to make him. I don't hate him though, and he's fun in Dead Rising. I've only ever played Dead Rising 1, but I did like Frank in that. Okay, next Netflix franchise. Johnny Lawrence uh from Cobra Kai. So, like I said, I don't see Netflix licensing, like getting a lot of licenses for this unless the licensors are down. It feels like the people in charge of Cobra Kai would be 100% down for this. They would absolutely give over the license, like easy peasy. Um, this roster's gonna be wild. Oh man, I'm excited. I'm excited for some of these picks, man. So so yeah, so Johnny Lawrence from Cobra Kai. It's funny. I haven't watched Cobra Kai. Um, I haven't seen Karate Kid 1 in a really long time, and I've wanted to rewatch it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. Um, and I don't think I've ever watched the Karate Kid sequels, even though, you know, I had weird adults calling me Daniel San, from pretty much all of the 90s into the 2010s. uh, like I really want to check out more Karate Kid. I've always been really interested in it. But yeah, Johnny Lawrence, he's basically the protagonist of Cobra Kai. He was the antagonist in the first Karate Kid, and you know, this is about him as an adult and his childhood rival Daniel LaRusso. Um and they have two very like differing fighting styles, right? Like Johnny is like very like aggressive and offense based, and Daniel's style is much more defensive. Um, obviously, Johnny's obviously Ryu and Ken's foil, like the Dan of the game. Honestly, I have Johnny. Um, I have Johnny kind of. I figure that he is kind of the rival character in this game of what might be a very obvious Capcom character. Um, yeah. So Ryu and Johnny are basically going to be rivals in this, right? Like Ryu is Johnny's counterpart in this game. Thank you for choosing Dill for you. It was the obvious choice, right? A Ryu and 11 dialogue would go crazy like a 40-year-old man throwing hands with a child. Honestly, I feel like Ryu would be impressed by 11's like inner strength, you know? He'd be... Honestly, Ryu would sense a lot of darkness in 11 and like want to mentor her. That'd be my guess. So yeah, we got Ryu versus Johnny. And while we got Ryu, let's get another obvious character out of the way. Um yeah. Yeah, Chun-Li's obviously in this. So Ryu, Chun-Li, and another Capcom character are staples in the versus Capcom franchise. You're gonna see Ryu and Chun-Li in every roster I make. Uh so yeah, Chun-Li will be on here, and she'll be kind of a loose rival to another character. Not really a hard rival. Uh, Johnny Lawrence and Ryu are definitely like they're gonna face off in the trailer, right? Like they're gonna face off in the trailer. Chun Li will have like fights and dialogue with another character, but it won't be quite as intense or like or focused, right? It's just like well, Ryu has a rivalry with this Cobra Kai character, so Chun Li should have a rivalry with this Cobra Kai character. Daniel LaRusso. Johnny would be a good foil to Ken, as they're both washed up now that Ken has become a crypto bro in Street Fighter 6. I'm praying that Ken doesn't actually know what crypto is. Oh no, that's right. Doesn't his company like get into crypto, and like Ken's like no, and then he gets framed for murder. I think something like that actually does happen in like the Street Fighter 6 like background lore. There's literally a man named Dan. He's the Dan. No. Daniel Russo is much more competent than Dan and a lot less silly. But yeah, like Daniel's kind of the yin to Johnny's yang. They have very kind of contradicting and yet complementing like fighting styles. He's kind of, the water to Johnny's fire. Um and I feel like Chun-Li and Daniel would kind of like bond over having fighting styles with like more elegant movements. Um So yeah, Daniel actually wasn't. I actually initially had him as DLC, but I moved him up because he just felt essential, like the longer I thought about it. So here he is. Yeah, in Street Fighter Six's prequel manga, Ken's investors chastise him for making bad investments in cryptocurrency. That does not make him very relatable and likable, huh? So that's all the Cobra Kai characters for now. But but I have another Netflix character for you who like fights, who's like fighting style would be them actually doing some kind of martial art. And this is one of my favorite picks actually. Zoya the Destroyer. This is Alison Brie's character in the Netflix original series Glow, aka Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. Uh so yeah, she this is a pro wrestler character, so she could be one of the grapplers in the game, right? And Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling is very much kind of that WWE style, like making a show out of the wrestling, So she'd be like very flashy, very like bombastic, and I feel like she'd be great. Also, I want to watch Glow now. I haven't watched Glow, and putting together this roster makes me want to watch Glow. Alison Brie is, incredible in pretty much everything she's in. So, but who do I have? You're assuming they wouldn't be able to get Alison Brie, but hearing her voice a grappler would be hilarious. Honestly, I think Allison would be down. She does a decent amount of voice acting, and she never really became like uh a name that's too big, you know. Um, she's like B or C tier in terms of like I guess sheer billing, right? She deserves to be higher. She's awesome, but yeah, like I think she would do a Netflix versus Capcom contract if they paid her enough. Just give her the same voice direction as Incineroar in Smash. You don't know anything about this franchise, but the name is top tier. Yeah, right. Zoya the Destroyer. It's great. And one thing that's actually kind of awesome is Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling is like a real thing, but all the characters in it are fictionalized. They're all like kind of pastiches of real wrestlers from Glow, but they're not real wrestlers. Because another thing I had trouble with for Netflix is that like a lot of Netflix's shows are about real fucking people, right? I can't put Jeffrey Dahmer in this game, or at least I'm not going to put Jeffrey Dahmer in this game. So so yeah, the fact that Glow actually kind of hits kind of this spot in the middle where the concept is real but the characters aren't, was kind of perfect for this. Zoya the Destroyer is perfect for this roster. And I got really excited about figuring out her rival once I figured out Zoya. Jeffrey Dahmer, the only character who has a fatality. Honestly, fatalities in Netflix versus Capcom would make a little sense. The the best version of this game is probably M-rated, right? But here's Zoe the Destroyer's rival character on the Capcom side. Rainbow Mika. Yeah, another pro wrestler. And I just feel like their interactions would be great. Like, I can see them facing off and getting into, like, really great, like, showboat offs, you know? And it's just like a manatee from Planet Earth. Is Planet Earth Netflix, or is that, like, Disney Plus? Either way, a manatee is not on my roster, sorry. But yeah, so Rainbow Mika is the third Street Fighter character. Last one in the base roster. I can't have too many reps because the sample size of these rosters is pretty small. And so you could go here next to the Karate Boys, Cobra Kai. Yeah, so that's what? That's the first 10 characters. That's the first 10 characters in the roster. So what should I do next? Let's look at my notes here. Oh, let's start with the remaining staple character, shall we? The remaining character you're going to see in every Capcom game. It's Morrigan. Morrigan is in every Capcom versus Capcom game. And I think in some of these rosters, her inclusion is going to be kind of a problem, just due to her design. In Netflix versus Capcom, it's not. Netflix versus Capcom is going to be fine with horny characters, so Morgan's going to be right at home. This is already so good. Thanks for combining my intuition with your absolute shit tier recommendation. I loved your, I'll be completely honest. When I first saw your recommendation, I'm like, I don't want to do that. And then I thought about it, and it became one of the rosters I wanted to do most. So thank you for your recommendation. Like, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart. So yeah, so Morgan's in here, and honestly, I think Morgan will be pretty cool in this because, like, she'll be really well equipped to deal with the spooky stuff that the Stranger Things characters and the Resident Evil characters will be grappling with in this story. And, you know, she'll play like fucking Morgan does in all of these fighting games. Her fireballs will be slower. This will be a slower paced game. And why don't we stick another Darkstalkers character on here? Dimitri. Dimitri is from Darkstalkers. He's a vampire, and he hasn't been in any versus Capcom game yet. He feels like a really good fit for Netflix versus Capcom. He's kind of a rival of Morgan's. Like, basically, he needs to deplete. He needs to steal her life force to be whole again or something. And he'll be kind of an antagonist in this. You know, like, Morgan will be kind of a femme fatale, kind of helping the good guy party, while Dimitri will be kind of walking in the shadows and, like, pushing against that team of heroes, right? Dimitri is a creep. Dimitri's like a fucking creep, and I think back when they made this character in the 90s, like they thought that they were making a character that was pretty cool. In Netflix versus Capcom, there's a lot of Netflix characters that are creeps, you know, and that are villainized for being creeps. So he'll be villainized for being a creep in this, and he'll definitely be one of the bad guys. Dimitri has this move in Darkstalkers and Capcom Fighting Evolution, SNK versus Capcom. Oh, he has been in a versus Capcom game before, actually. He's been in SNK versus Capcom. SVC Chaos, I think. He just hasn't been in any of the Marvel vs. Capcoms. He has a move called Midnight Bliss. It's a very, very badly dated move where he grabs the... It's like a super move where he grabs the opponent, and if it's a guy character, he turns them into a sexy woman before drinking their blood. And if it's a girl character, he turns them into an even sexier woman before drinking their blood. There's teenagers in this game, so if he has Midnight Bliss, it'll be reworked. Like maybe he'll transform characters, but they won't all be sexualized and weird, right? Yeah. Other than that, he's got cool moveset potential and a cool design, you know. I think this will be a good opportunity to bring his character into the 2020s somehow. You could always put in Jeddah instead. He's the main villain and he's way cooler. Yeah, I did think about Jeddah, and ultimately I wanted... Like, Jeddah showed up in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, right? And for this roster specifically, Dimitri made a little more sense to me. No weird implications. That's true. Dimitri did make a little more sense to me because Netflix is kind of a company that is filled with characters that have weird implications, right? But at least, like, most of those things depict those characters as bad. So I thought Dimitri might actually be one of the best fits for Netflix. And depending on what things I spin, we might see Jeddah later. Who knows? Let's see. Do I have... Is there a Netflix series here that's that kind of complements Darkstalkers pretty well? Not really. Not that I want to touch on right away. So let's let's fill out the rest of the Netflix row with some other, like, kind of fighting gamey characters. Actually, let's get another fighting game character in here. On the Netflix side, this might be one of my weirdest picks, but it's one of my favorites. Roxette. Sorry for the image quality. Would you believe there's not a lot of high quality images of this character on the internet? Roxette is the fighting game character from the episode of Black Mirror where Anthony Mackie has gay VR sex. Yeah, there's an episode of Black Mirror where Anthony Mackie gets a VR fighting game, and his buddy plays it with him, um, and yeah, Striking Vipers. The episode's called Striking Vipers, and Roxette is a character in Striking Vipers that ends up having a lot of sex with Anthony Mackie's fighting game character. Uh, and I hadn't seen this episode before I started making this list. I wasn't able to do a lot of homework, you know. I wasn't able to see a lot of things I hadn't already seen. But Devin and I did watch the Striking Vipers episode of Black Mirror over the week. Because I was really curious. I wanted to see if Roxette would even work as a fighting game character, or if she'd just be like a Chun-Li ripoff. Turns out, yeah, she'd be a great fighting game character. She is like her own character. She has a lot of like moves that are unique to her. She has this great move where like she kind of uppercuts the opponent and then like grabs them by the legs and like slams them back down. Um, and yeah, she does pull from Chun-Li a bit, but she has some moves that aren't just Chun-Li moves, right? Uh, Sounds like it's time for me to start watching Black Mirror. Yeah, and honestly, Striking Vipers is unironically like a great. It's a great episode of Black Mirror. Like the cinematography is really good. The writing is better than it needs to be. Devin and I are both very attracted to Palm Clementif. It was a good time. It was a really good time. Does she? Can she? Is this M-rated? Okay, so here's my view for Roxette in Netflix versus Capcom. Um, in Netflix versus Capcom, Roxette is uh Carl in Roxette's body, right? This game will not have sex scenes, but Roxette will be like a pretty horny character who is down for having sex with polar bears. Anyway, I talked about this as much as I want to? I think yes. I think yes. And to be fair, everyone is attractive in that episode. Yeah, yeah, everyone is attractive in that episode. Everyone's looking good in that shit. Yeah, we even got to see a little Anthony Mackie butt, or you know, Anthony Mackie's butt stunt double. It's unclear. For real, this is so inspired. Yeah, like discovering Roxette, I think, is when like a light bulb went off for this game. So yeah, and since Roxette is literally a fighting game character, I feel like she has to be in this game. So here she is. She'll be in the fighting game character row here. Legit, so much worse from Black Mirror. I kind of scanned like Black Mirror's like episode list and stuff. Roxette felt like the best fit for me. Based off of me purely like scanning a lot of synopses and shit, I'm not really sure what else would fit as a fighting game character. Let's see. It makes the most sense. Fill that spot at the end so I can move on to other rows. Let's see, we're approaching the halfway point of each roster. Oh, um, I've I've got a character that I think would actually vibe with Morgan to a decent level on the Netflix side. Nimona. Um, it's funny how in another universe she could have been in like a Disney versus Capcom. But here she is in Netflix versus Capcom. Nimona is from the Blue Sky Studios movie that was scrapped when Blue Sky Studios got shut down by Disney, and then Netflix rescued the project. Uh, don't forget that Netflix owns the right to Roald Dahl's library. Here's an unfortunate spoiler. I did forget that. I wasn't aware of that. Maybe if I ever made a maybe if I ever make a third season of DLC for this game, I'll remedy that mistake. But I think they also have like movie and TV rights to Narnia, but yeah, neither of those things are on here. But honestly, maybe they shouldn't be because they haven't actually made anything with those properties yet. Not that that stopped Nickelodeon from putting Garfield in their games. Um, but yeah, here's a easy mistake to make. They've canceled like 80% of the doll shows. Sounds about right. Sounds about right. So yeah, Nimona. Yeah, she's awesome. Her movie's awesome. Netflix rescued it from Disney, and like it's actually really excellent. F's in chat for Blue Sky, and she'd be, uh, she's a shapeshifter, so she could have a lot of cool things where she like transforms into beasts and stuff. I imagine that she'll have kind of a pseudo rivalry with Morgan, where she thinks that what Morgan is doing is really cool and wants to be more like Morgan. Um, and Morgan's like kind of bemused and kind of doesn't want anything to do with this. Nimona's like really annoying about being like Morgan's protege. So we'll put her we'll put here. Kind of at the end of the row. Okay, let's see. I got half of the roster left for each side. Um, okay, right. So more Capcom characters that deal with spooky stuff, demons and ghosts and shit, right? Um, let's get another obvious one out of the way. Another character that's basically becoming a staple of the versus Capcom franchise. Um, I don't remember if I have him in every versus Capcom roster, but he's here for sure. It feels like obvious that he should be here. Yeah, Dante will be here sporting his Devil May Cry 5 design, and doing a lot of funky Dante shit. I'll put him next to the Resident Evil characters. Um, but let's actually get a Capcom character that's never been in a versus Capcom game in here. Oh, you know what? I forgot about something here. So let me move that to the side. But here's a Capcom character that's never been in a versus Capcom game before. Nero, also from Devil May Cry. Um, Yeah, it's funny. Devil May Cry is another one of those franchises I've never really played. I've never played any Devil May Cry games, but I'm very aware how cool they are and how fun they are, and I really should like get on that. You thought I was about to say Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins with the spooky stuff. I thought about Arthur for this. He's a little too goofy for Netflix versus Capcom. He's a little too cartoony, you know. Obviously, Nemona's cartoony, but she's still like kind of equipped to handle darker themes since her movie has those. Arthur is just a goofy little cartoon man. So he does deal with spooky stuff, but he wasn't quite the best fit for this game. You might see him in other versus Capcoms though, depending on what I spin. But yeah, Dante and Nero as the Devil May Cry reps for the base roster there. And I may have forgotten a Resident Evil rep in the base roster, so let's remedy that real quick. With another character that's never been in a versus Capcom game before. Lady Dimitrescu from Resident Evil 8. Um yeah, this this feels like such I think she could have such a cool fighting game move set, you know, with the claws and being like 8 feet tall. She could be kind of like a pseudo grappler. Um, and yeah, she would obviously have a big presence in the story mode. Uh, like 11 and Hopper kind of having to scramble away from Dimitrescu before Leon and Jill like come in to help, you know? Yeah, she'd be fantastic. Nero would have a great move set with the different robot arms he has, and he'd be part grappler as well. Ooh, that's cool. I'm always glad to accidentally put grapplers into these games, because sometimes it feels like there's not a lot of grappler opportunities in versus Capcom games. You feel like Mr. Peanut Butter from BoJack Horseman is required to show up in some capacity, if only just to say, "What is this? A crossover episode?" Yeah, maybe he has a cameo. He shows up in someone's ending. Actually, yeah, does let's see, which Capcom character's ending would he show up in? None of these characters yet. None of these characters. Maybe another character later. Um, Heavyweight femme characters are always welcome. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. You want to see Dimitrescu step on Grandpa Joe's neck? Grandpa Joe? Oh, from fucking Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He's not in this game yet. You're right. I haven't made season 3 DLC yet. Anything can happen. All right, cool. So that's the top 2 rows. You approve of the Resident Evil 8 representation? Good. Good. I'm glad. Like I was sometimes I think like what characters would Sean want to play? And Dimitrescu I think had that line of thought. Grandpa Joe would be this game's bed man. I hate that joke. I hate it. Uh okay. What Netflix characters do I pick now? I don't think I have anything that like straight up complements Devil May Cry or um yeah, absolutely play Dimitrescu. She'd be a great bruiser. Yeah. Yeah. Um maybe this character can be kind of a rival for Dante in some ways. Um Just because they're both like cool sword fighters. Mizu from Blue Eye Samurai. Apologies to Max. I haven't watched this yet. But I found out some things about this character and the show when I was looking things up for Netflix versus Capcom that have put it on the top of the list. Uh, like it's a high priority watch, and I really want to get to it soon. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, phenomenal design. Uh, like a samurai in a fighting game is always welcome. Um, and yeah, cool as fuck. And yeah, maybe Mizu could have like a sword fight with Dante or something. Control Shift and V. Remembering that hotkey would make my life easier. But I have a disorder. The Netflix franchise that complements Capcom's Devil May Cry is obviously Netflix's production of Devil May Cry launching in 2024. It's really funny you say that. I have I don't have anything I don't have anything that references Netflix having anything to do with Devil May Cry in here. Um but I I'll explain later. I'll explain later. But it's funny that you say that. And let's get a so here's so there is some Netflix stuff I've added that is like family friendly. But even family friendly Netflix stuff does tend to have like darker themes, you know, and like deals like ever like the most family friendly Netflix stuff is like kind of Avatar level where like it still deals with like stuff that's dark and stuff that's troubling, right? Um Case in point, speaking of Avatar, we've got Callum from the Dragon Prince. Would Castlevania be allowed in? No, I covered that at the beginning of this roster. Um, uh, yeah, no, like basically the short version of what my mindset for that is, uh, if it's from a licensed property, would the licensor be down? And I figured that Konami would not be down to put Castlevania characters in a game that's being developed by one of their competitors. I figured that wouldn't happen. Um, yeah, but Callum from the Dragon Prince, which is basically from an outsider perspective, I haven't watched any Dragon Prince, but it feels very we have Avatar at home, which is very funny now that they just have Avatar. Uh, but yeah, Dragon Prince seems interesting. I do want to check it out at some point. Callum appears to like have magic abilities, and also he takes care of the titular Dragon Prince, so maybe he could call in the Dragon Prince for some of his moves or something. It's funny how many of these Netflix properties I have not experienced. But anyway, they have Avatar cautious optimism at best. Yeah, the new Avatar. The trailers for it look really great aesthetically. I think they've picked actors that look the part very well. I'm worried about the performances, and I'm worried about the writing, especially with some of the stuff that they've like reported, like of the especially some of the things I know that they've cut already. Cautious optimism is a great way to put it. Like Netflix earned a little goodwill from me when the One Piece adaptation was really good actually, but I don't think the Avatar adaptation will be as good as the One Piece adaptation was. But yeah, that's Callum. That's Callum. Go over here. And even though I have an experienced Dragon Prince, Callum isn't the only Dragon Prince character in the base roster. You're withholding judgment on the Avatar remake until it actually comes out officially, but you'll be shocked if it's even serviceable, honestly. I think serviceable will be a good word for what it ends up being, you know? But I think you don't want live-action Luffy, but you do want the actor that played live-action Luffy. Oh my god, I should have put Iñaki in here. I should have put Iñaki in the roster. Just Iñaki as himself. Oh man, missed opportunity. I fucked up. I really should have had you next to me when I was putting this together. Oh yeah. I forgot the character's name, so it's hard for me to find her for a second. I should always have you next to me. Yeah, move back to Chicago, man. What do you have over there? A family? Rayla. Now again, I don't know much about Dragon Prince, but from what I gathered, Rayla is like an assassin that has character development. So yeah, put that in a fucking fighting game. Do it. And I did do it. I put her in a fighting game. So yeah, Rayla filling out the top row. So okay, we're down to the last 5 characters on each side on the base roster. And I feel like I haven't even shown you my weirdest picks. Oh, but you know what? I should put Mizu down here for reasons. Okay, yeah. So let's should we get weird for a second? Okay, yeah. We'll do weird, then less weird, then really weird, and then we'll close it out. Yeah. Okay. So starting with a little weird. Have I talked about how likely I think any of these individual versus Capcom games are? It sounds if it sounds interesting, maybe save for the end. Yeah, I can save those for the end, sure. All right. Carnivore from an episode of Love, Death, and Robots. I actually did watch this episode back in the day, and basically it's about a woman who kind of enters like a kaiju fighting ring. Like basically it's like if you could kind of do the mind meld with kaijus and robots that you can do in Pacific Rim, but characters in this setting kind of sync up with beasts and enter those beasts into fighting rings. So Carnivore is one of those beasts, kind of this cool like tentacle lizard thing, and yeah, it's badass, and it'd be awesome in a fighting game. It'd just be this big ass thing, like kind of like doing rush down, like like claw swipes, but also fucking doing mid-range grapples with its tentacles. I think that'd be cool. I think it'd be pretty cool. And Carnivore is actually a character that I put in here with a rival for it in mind. So actually, Mizu, why don't I actually move you here, Mizu? I'm sorry that I can't find the perfect place for you, Mizu. I'm sorry, Mizu. Just go over there. Carnivore, Carnivore can go here. I'm loving some of these suggestions that are getting thrown out. So Carnivore's Capcom rival character is called Zinogre. So a little backstory on this. I was coming up with a Netflix versus Capcom roster. I found Carnivore, and I'm like, man, it'd be really fucking cool if Carnivore fought a Monster Hunter monster in like the fighting ring, you know, like instead of fighting another Pacific Rim monster, what if Carnivore fought a Monster Hunter monster? But I didn't know enough about Monster Hunter to have much confidence in who that monster would be. I thought about Rathalos, but Rathalos is too fucking big. So I actually messaged Sean. I'm like, hey, Sean, tell me some monsters from Monster Hunter you think would be, like, cool as fighting game characters, and also, like, characters that you think that Capcom, like, monsters that you think Capcom feels important enough to actually put in a fighting game. And Sean gave me a short list of monsters, and that list was so helpful that I was able to pick Zinogre as a great rival / counterpart for Carnivore out of the list. But also his list helped me, like, I read some of these monsters and I'm like, oh, this would be really cool for this versus Capcom game, actually. So this might not be the only time you see a Monster Hunter monster that Sean recommended tonight. It is the only time you'll see it in Netflix versus Capcom, but it might not be the only time you see it tonight. This game had things like assist trophies that absolutely go off the rails with stuff. Oh yeah, for sure. His list was so helpful that the remaining 10 Capcom characters are Monster Hunter reps. No, I would never do that to myself. They put a whole ass monster in this game? Yeah, man, it's crazy. Who curated this? But yes, yeah, Zinogre from Monster Hunter as specifically a counterpart for the tentacle lizard from Love, Death, and Robots. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for your service. Hopefully this isn't the time that he started to take a nap or went to go get a snack or something. Shift C, I should remember that. Alright, so there we go. Zinogre versus Carnivore. And let's pick a couple that are less weird. The Arisen from Dragon's Dogma. Not only is Dragon's Dogma getting a new game this year, so I feel like Capcom will want to push the marketing of this game a bit more. But also, did you know that there was a Dragon's Dogma anime on Netflix? Once I realized that, Arisen initially wasn't on this list, and then I found that out, and I made room for the Arisen. Yeah, the Arisen, you know, would have cool like weapon abilities. Probably throw some magic in there. And yeah, maybe the Arisen is the one that fights Mizu with swords, you know. But yeah, apparently the Dragon's Dogma anime wasn't very good, but it does exist. So here Arisen is kind of a Netflix character and a Capcom character. But also Arisen is specifically a Capcom character for the purposes of the roster. And on the less weird side, maybe still a little weird, but on the less weird side of Netflix, Wednesday. From Wednesday. This is probably I feel like most of the picks that I've chosen, the licensors would be down. I feel like Wednesday is the least likely that the licensors would be down to adapt her into a versus Capcom game. But I feel like there's a chance, so she's in, especially because she's so like she's such a front-facing franchise / character for Netflix right now. I feel like Netflix would really push for her inclusion. She has psychic powers in the show, so I think in the game that would kind of manifest as a parry, you know, like you'd input the move and then as someone's attacking, she'd like dodge out of the way because she saw it coming, you know. Also, I feel like her playstyle would utilize Thing a lot. She'd like throw Thing onto the field, and Thing would like, you know, crawl across the floor and like grab onto an opponent's leg so she could like stab you and stuff. Also, the most obvious taunt of all time? Yes, the most obvious taunt of all time. Oh yeah, she could have fencing moves. Yeah, that's right, she does fencing. She could absolutely do fencing stuff. Hey, Wednesday. Well, welcome back. Were you away when I said that Zinogre was in the game? Thanks to your recommendation. Zinogre fights a Love, Death, and Robots monster. You've heard that the Capcom Netflix series have not been good. This might not... I might not be done talking about Capcom Netflix series. More on that in a second. You had to step away for a bit for the record. You also appreciate Arisen as a choice. Yeah. 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 Here's... Yeah, Zinogre's here. He fights... He fights this thing. Sorry, I won't tailor my entire stream to a single person, but since Sean helped me come up with that part of the roster, I wanted him to see it. Would Wednesday be able to summon the entire Addams family? Oh, that's not a bad idea. That's a thought. That could be like her cinematic super. I'll put Wednesday here. Okay. Um, so we're down to the last few characters on each side of the roster. So I guess before I reveal the characters that kind of... Oh, right, let me... let me get one more pick out of the way before I really ramp things up. Um... Um... Spencer from Bionic Commando. Um... Honestly, from a subjective standpoint, right? Um, I think it's silly that Capcom keeps shoving this guy into their versus Capcom games. He's not an amazing design. He's kind of boring. He's really like milquetoast, you know, very just like dumb and edgy. Uh, However, dumb and edgy is a great fit for Netflix. Um, the competitive community loves him because he has like a one frame super. So they want him to be in all the versus Capcom games. And yeah, um, again, yes, wife arm, exactly. A character with a whose robot arm is his wife. That's a Netflix original character if I've ever heard of one. So here he is. Here's Spencer. Not my favorite pick, but I feel like one that would be in the game. Okay, let's get nuts. So so I think even the most serious companies uh need like some weird goofy picks. Um like even the stuff that's the most serious, like even Marvel that has a lot of serious stuff going on. Capcom and Marvel will draw some really some really goofy fucking representatives, right? So like even Netflix, even something as dark and cool as Netflix, uh I wanted to have kind of have a goofy humorous rep, right? Um so the goofy rep for Netflix. So here's a behind the scenes thing. You'll notice that that I have a lot of live action characters on the Netflix side, but for the live action characters, I tried to find pictures for them that were art, right? That weren't just like live action photos of those characters. Even for Wednesday, I tried to put a filter on her so she looked a bit more artsy, right? Tim Robinson, I knew I was just literally gonna find a fucking photo of Tim Robinson and just paste it onto my Photoshop, uh, onto my GIMP. I use GIMP, not Photoshop. We're all looking for the guy who did that. Oh wait, it's Daniel. So yes, Tim Robinson would be in the game, as as kind of, first of all, he'd be kind of an amalgam of a bunch of different I think you should leave sketches, right? Like one of his supers would be coffin flop, like a coffin like shows on the top side of the screen and a fucking naked dead body falls out of it and lands on the opponent, right? One of his other supers is like him crashing a car into you while wearing a hot dog suit. Uh and and like he'd be like kind of like not exactly the same tonally, but he'd be kind of like the Deadpool of this game in the facet of he'd be like, it's like, why mind this video game, you know, like uh and he'd uh yeah, he'd have a lot of really absurd like inane interactions with all of these Capcom characters. Um, oh my god. Dave from Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beast, very realistic, very gritty. But then I'd have to decide if Kipo counts as Netflix or DreamWorks. So I will say this. I thought about some Netflix shows like She-Ra, like Voltron. And then I noticed that those were DreamWorks animation projects. Um, those would not count as Netflix uh characters. I will say that much. They won't count as Netflix characters. Um His ultimate should be 55 burgers, 55 fries, all raining down on his opponents. He never actually got those burgers and fries, though. Sloppy steaks taunt, mud pie death sound, zipline recover. Oh my god, the zipline would absolutely be a special move. The zipline would absolutely be a special move. That's great. That's fantastic. Anyway, yes, he'd be in there, and then whenever he saw a Capcom character, he'd be like, "What are you, Mario? Where's Mario?" I don't fucking know. I don't have a Tim Robinson impression. Please forget I did that. please forget I did that. Okay, so you got Tim Robinson as the weird rep, is the weird representative for Netflix. And I'm like, who's the weird representative for Capcom that still feels like kind of realistic and kind of gritty, right? Who's the character that's stupid and also kind of fits kind of the Netflix vibe? And I'm proud to announce the long-awaited return of Bad Box Art Mega Man. Uh, so there was this there was kind of this phase of Capcom, right, where like the Mega Man 1 having a bad like shitty box art with a weird drawing of a man that didn't look like Mega Man on it, right? That was kind of a meme in the 2010s, and Capcom noticed the meme and they liked it so much that they made him a playable character in Street Fighter Cross Tekken. So this is canonically a Capcom character. This is a character that Capcom made. This is official art of a Capcom character. So yeah, even though I'm sure Capcom regrets ever buying into that meme, he's the goofy rep. He's the silly representative. He's the weirdo rep in Netflix versus Capcom. Uh and like he's not in the story much, honestly, because he breaks the tone of it. um but he's there. It's crazy that the character creating this game's M rating is Tim Robinson because it keeps like, what the fuck is that? Yeah. Yeah, see, it's got to be M rated so you can really let Tim Robinson lose. All right. Hey, I remembered the hotkey. That's so much better. That's so much faster. Okay. So these last three are all kind of connected in a fun way. I think I can connect all of these. Did I see the version where he looked like an actual cool superhero before they went with this version? If I did, I don't think I remember it. Okay, so the last non-boss Netflix character, and by the way, when the bosses are playable in this, that's why they're on the roster of 15. Um, the last non-boss playable character, base box art Mega Man, on the Netflix side is Miyamoto Musashi. From the Netflix adaptation of Onimusha. So, okay, here's my thought process here. Onimusha got a Netflix anime, right? and and they put Miyamoto Musashi as the main character of this. But here's the thing: Miyamoto Musashi has never been a main character in an Onimusha game. He's like a secret unlockable character in like a Onimusha spin-off, but he looks nothing like this, and he doesn't have these powers and abilities that he has in the Netflix adaptation. That means that this Onimusha character is specific to Netflix. So he is a Netflix representative, and one that Netflix doesn't have to worry about getting licensing for, because Capcom will obviously say yes. So Miyamoto, yeah, Miyamoto Musashi Miyamoto, will be joining kind of the demon fighting squad of the Stranger Things kids and the Resident Evil cast and the Devil May Cry guys. He'll kind of be joining this group, um, because not only to fight the demons and zombies and stuff that's kind of emerging in the story already, but because he knows uh, that there's one specific demon behind a lot of this. Oops. Damn, I remembered it and then. Yeah. There. Oh, no. What's going on here? Okay, it's fine. Oh. I don't know oh, I see what's happening. It's fine. We're fine. It's good. Okay. Sorry for a little technical hiccup there. Um, and yeah, he's dealing. He knows that there's one specific demon to deal with, and that is the boss character on the Capcom side. Fortinbras. Fortinbras from Onimusha, from the Onimusha franchise. Fortinbras is this demon that likes to kind of that kind of likes to give people demonic energy. Like Oda Nobunaga. Um and also sometimes he is a final boss that you have to fight directly. And you don't get to see his bottom half, but he's basically like a naga, right? He's basically got like a fucking snake body for his lower half. So he's like, yeah, like a once I started looking up Onimusha shit, I haven't played Onimusha by the way. Once I started looking up Onimusha shit, I kind of realized that Fortinbras had to be involved in all this, just because Netflix has done Onimusha stuff kind of recently, and Capcom's been remastering Onimusha games. Yeah, so Fortinbras here is kind of a left field boss character. And I think we can all guess who Fortinbras ends up collaborating with. Shit. Another Tim Robinson. Sorry if this music's getting repetitive, guys. Sean should send me other music that I should put in this playlist. Um, or, suggest it to me if I already have access to it. Um, but yes, the boss character of the Netflix side is Vecna, um, from Stranger Things. It's like, yeah, it's funny. It's stupid that I held on to it for this long. Honestly, everyone saw it coming. It's really obvious. But yeah, he'd be an amazing fighting game character, and he's such a fucking. He's literally the boss of Netflix. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, he's got such a cool fucking design. Um, yeah. A lot of the music he could contribute is sadly riffing off of licensed music. Yeah, that's kind of the thing, huh? I should really commission you to make more music for a podcast project that ends up falling through. I should just I should just do that so I have more podcast music from you. Um but yeah. Yeah, like easy. Like all these Capcom characters teaming up to fight the combined forces of Fortinbras and Vecna. Fortinbras is supplying Vecna with all these additional demonic forces. And then, like, at the end, like, Fortinbras, like, you know, kind of fills Vecna with extra demonic power, so you fight, like, this extra corrupted version of Vecna at the very end. Vecna could essentially be the strong, slow semi-clone of 11. Yeah, like, you know, yeah, like Vecna is kind of in some ways like the Ken to 11's Ryu, right? He kind of has some of 11's moves, but they're like slower but more powerful and more like intimidating and fucked up. That's kind of how I see it. And there you have it. The base roster. The base roster for Netflix versus Capcom. No Umbrella Academy in the base roster. They seem like a shoe-in. I agree that they do seem like a shoe-in. I decided against it because Umbrella Academy is owned by WB, and I feel like WB Games would not want Capcom to have any of their characters. I did think of I looked at Umbrella Academy, I thought about it, but then I realized that they're owned by WB, and that'd be a no-go. Have I seen the behind-the-scenes picture of the Vecna actor drinking Starbucks? That's a taunt if you've ever seen one. That's an ending. That's someone's ending. Oh yeah, who's uh wait, there was a funny there's a funny interaction that I wanted a Netflix character to have with a Capcom character, and I wasn't sure who it'd be yet. And now I forget what that was. No Squid from Squid Game. So before I even break out the DLC, I looked very strongly, like I kept trying to think of what would work as a Squid Game playable character, because I do think Squid Game would be represented in this, but nothing really works as a fighting game character for Squid Game. Um and yeah, you basically just said it in chat. Squid Game there would be a Squid Game stage. There would be a Squid Game stage in Netflix versus Capcom, and in arcade mode, there'd be a mini game where you play red light, green light with that big creepy doll thing. Like you'd have to get from the left end of the stage over to the right end of the stage without getting caught by the doll. Squid Game could have some interesting representation, but you can't picture a character stage for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Squid Game characters are either just poor people or nameless faceless grunts with guns. Yeah, like the most badass characters in Squid Game are just like people that are weirdly good at children's games. You know, it doesn't really work for this thing that I'm doing. This very specific thing that I'm doing. But okay, so yeah, so the base roster. The base roster is Eleven from Stranger Things, Hopper from Stranger Things, Vecna from Stranger Things, Callum from Dragon Prince, Rayla from Dragon Prince, Johnny Lawrence from Cobra Kai, Daniel LaRusso from Cobra Kai, Zoya the Destroyer from Glow, uh, Roxette from Street Vipers, Street Vipers from the VR sex episode of Black Mirror. Striking Vipers, thank you. Nimona from Nimona, Carnivore from Love, Death, and Robots, Mizu from Blue Eye Samurai, Wednesday from Wednesday, Tim Robinson from I Think You Should Leave, and Musashi Miyamoto from Onimusha on the Netflix side. And then on the Capcom side, we have Jill Valentine, Leon Kennedy, Lady Dimitrescu, Dante, and Nero from Devil May Cry, Ryu and Chun-Li and Rainbow Mika from Street Fighter, Morrigan and Dimitri from Darkstalkers, Zenogre from Monster Hunter, The Arisen from Dragon's Dogma, Spencer from Bionic Commando, Bad Box Art Mega Man, and Ford and Braz, the boss character for the Capcom side. If this game had 100 characters, Squid Game rep makes sense. Yeah, there's some of these that I struggled so much with space. Like the limitation of 21 characters per side after DLC was such a struggle for some of these. Netflix, I didn't have as hard a time, but some of these broke me, man. Some of these rosters broke me. But all right, I think it's time to get into the DLC. So without further ado, and basically, we'll be doing. The way I imagine it is that like they'll roughly be released in like pairs of two, right? Because it always feels weird if there's like more characters of one company than another company. But you know, I think in this day and age that's kind of hard to do and not very feasible. But basically, I'll at least be doing them in alternating order, right? A Netflix character, then a Capcom character, then a Netflix character, etc. So, our first DLC character is Steve Harrington from Stranger Things. Obviously, we got to get a little more Stranger Things in the roster, right? That just makes sense. And Steve Harrington, I think, after 11 and Hopper and Vecna is probably like the breakout character of the series. He's probably the most popular. Steve Harrington has his baseball bat, but obviously he doesn't do a lot as a fighter besides that, right? So in Netflix versus Capcom, he would have Dustin as kind of an assist character who would be doing things like throwing traps around the screen. One of the supers is that Dustin will lay like snacks out on the floor, and then that little Demogorgon baby will just like run across the screen and fuck up whatever it runs into. Do these games ever have guests outside of the two versus properties? Obviously, generally no. Generally they do not. Like it's hard enough to get those two companies to collaborate, you know? So they're not really going to get any outside people. So yeah, that's DLC number 1. And then the second DLC character is Akuma from Street Fighter. Yeah, I think, you know, Akuma is one of those Street Fighter. So here's a couple things about Akuma. Akuma is in most versus Capcom games, right? And Capcom likes to put Akuma in the versus Capcom games because technically he was like the first crossover character that Capcom ever did. I think in X-Men Children of the Atom or something, or Marvel Superheroes, Akuma is a secret fightable character that you can unlock in that. So so kind of as a nod to that, he's a playable character in most versus Capcom games. I think he's not in all of them. I think maybe he didn't make it into Tatsunoko versus Capcom, for example. So I'm not going to put him in all of my versus Capcom rosters, but in a Netflix roster, like an edgy, dark, gritty character like Akuma, who's like Ryu, but he just can't stop murdering. That's a Netflix character right there. So he's DLC. He's in the DLC roster, and he's the first DLC rep for Capcom. You mean Akuma is also a baddie who wouldn't want him in? Imagine Akuma getting choked out by Vecna and then later uppercutting him. Akuma actually does kind of have a counterpart in this roster, but that counterpart isn't here yet, so I'll get into that later. Ah, yes. Um, here's here's another one where it's like, would the licensors be down for this? And I think the answer could be maybe not, but the answer could also be maybe. Stop imagining Akuma stepping on Grandpa Joe's neck. Grandpa Joe isn't here. Yeah, this is probably me playing fastest and loosest with the licensing, but I think it's such a fun pick that I couldn't resist. Shit, I gotta start remembering to order this properly. Sorry. And that's Retsuko from Agretsuko. Yeah, I just feel like she'd be an amazing fighting game character, and she has kind of, the adult feel of Netflix while still bringing some levity to the roster, which is very like gritty and dark otherwise. So yeah, I think she's kind of a perfect DLC pick, and there she is. Realize we get a fighting game remix of Running Up That Hill. Music licensing would be tough for this game. Because obviously you'd want to hear that song from Wednesday, but you might not get it, But I'm just here to figure out the roster. I'm not here to figure out music licensing. And now for Capcom, we've got another Stranger Things rep. So let's get another Resident Evil rep in here. Ada Wong, also from, I think, Resident Evil 2 and 4. I think this is her in her 4 outfit, her 4 design, her 4 remake design. Yeah, Ada Wong is great, great femme fatale character. A baddie, for sure. And yeah, I think she'd be great in a fighting game roster. Kind of crazy that she isn't in a fighting game yet. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, like her vibe is just great. It's cool that like Capcom keeps realizing that they've over sexualized her in the past and they adjust that, but they keep finding ways to make her still hot. It's really a genius balancing act they've concocted. But yeah, I think she's kind of perfect for the Capcom side of a Marvel vs. Capcom roster. Um, and she's also perfect for the Netflix vibe, you know. The outfit on her is A++, right? 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 That's a great fucking design, man. I just discovered it when I was doing this research, but it's great. Okay. All right, the last Netflix character on the first season of DLC. What is her policy vis-a-vis Nex and the stepping on of them? Well, I doubt she'd do it to Grandpa Joe. That's probably her stance. Uh, the last Netflix rap, and I mentioned Akuma having a counterpart, and and here it is. John Kreese, who is basically the Akuma of Cobra Kai, as I understand it. Um, yeah, John Kreese was kind of the villain of the first Karate Kid movie, I think, and apparently, like, he started showing up in Cobra Kai as like uh this character that has like kind of this wild development, and and sort of like Johnny and like Daniel, he has his own distinct style that I think could translate him into being a very distinct fighting game character from those other two, even though they're all kind of doing variations of karate. The Cobra Kai Street Fighter parallel is too obvious to not do. Yeah, right? Like when I figured that out, I'm like, "Oh, yep, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep rolling with it until I'm done making this roster." He's giving you Geese Howard vibes from the picture. He kind of is, isn't he? What's funny is that's like, oh yeah, like they're wearing the same colors. Yeah. What's funny is that's like official art of him. That's art from the Cobra Kai game. Geese Crease. And we got one more Capcom character for the first season of DLC. And for final DLC, well, this isn't really even final DLC. Like yeah, so I'll wait before I say what I was about to say there. But I did think this was a good time in the roster to bring out like a fan favorite. Something that would excite like, fighting game fans that are like keeping track of this game still. So we got Virgil from Devil May Cry. Virgil is pretty beloved both by Devil May Cry fans and by Versus Capcom fans. He's he's one of those characters with a really busted moveset in Ultimate Warrior vs. Capcom 3, so everyone wants him to come back for other fighting games. Um, and yeah, I think Devil May Cry is right at home in the Netflix environment. So it just made sense to put another Devil May Cry character in here. So here he is. Here's Virgil. Here's your boy. Okay. All right, season 2. So first Netflix character for season 2 of DLC. We have Enid Sinclair from Wednesday. It's Wednesday's werewolf girl roommate. Um yeah, I think she'd have a great fighting game moveset. She's she's got more of an upbeat, like friendly vibe that would be fun to see amongst these other Netflix characters. Um, uh, I it's funny, I haven't really mentioned like arcade character endings, but Enid's arcade mode ending, because the DLC characters don't really get to get involved in the main story. Um, Enid's arcade mode ending is that she meets John Talbane from Darkstalkers, who is a werewolf in the Darkstalkers universe, and he like takes her under his wing because she doesn't have all of her werewolf powers yet. That's I don't know why there's some characters where I have very specific thoughts for their endings, and Enid's just like sprouted when I considered her as a DLC character. Stop asking for Grandpa Joe. He's not happening. Um, and on the Capcom side, we got Poison from Fatal Fury slash Street Fighter. Now one thing I'm kind of bummed about is that Fatal Fury is such a not Fatal Fury, Final Fight. One thing I'm kind of bummed out about is that Final Fight is such a big part of Capcom and its history, and I feel like Capcom would probably put more Final Fight characters than I have in all of these rosters. Um, like on the other rosters, the Final Fight representation is admittedly pretty low, but I just don't like Hagar that much, and like he's always their go-to versus Capcom character. Um, Poison, however, I think is an awesome character. Uh, very cool, distinct vibe. Um, and I feel like if you put her in Netflix, if you put her in the Netflix setting, you might actually get her to be openly trans instead of have Capcom be really cheeky about it. So yeah, here she is as a DLC character. I think she's an awesome fit for this game, and and that she'd be a really fun character. Um, Down to the last handful here. Ah, yes. On the Netflix side, Aravos from the Dragon Prince. Yeah, just look at this design. This is a fighting game character. He's apparently like kind of one of the major antagonists, one of the major like evil forces in the Dragon Prince. Um, and yeah, he has cool powers and shit. He's got a cool design. So yeah. Even though I still haven't, again, I haven't watched the Dragon Prince, but he looks perfect for this. So he's a DLC character. Here he is. And then on the Capcom side, we're not done with Devil May Cry characters yet, because he kind of looks like a Granblue character. Oh yeah, I kind of see it. We're not done with Devil May Cry characters because here's Lady from Devil May Cry. Um, yeah, again, I haven't really experienced Devil May Cry, but Lady always has felt like a really cool design, a really cool character. Um, and badass with big gun, has been playable sometimes in Devil May Cry. Feels kind of wild that we haven't seen her in a versus Capcom game yet. So Yeah, I think in the I think Netflix versus Capcom specifically, it makes a lot of sense to have four Devil May Cry reps, so here she is as the fourth one. Now we're at our last DLC characters. So the final two characters are the purple alien from Home and Pac-Man. Purple alien is DreamWorks. Alien from Home is DreamWorks. Since we're almost done, you have to ask if Neo Yokio is in that Jaden Smith Netflix anime project from a while ago. I actually considered Neo Yokio. I considered Neo Yokio, and for Jaden Smith's character to have like a move where he swings a giant Toblerone at you. Uh, but he didn't make it into the final roster, partially because that's all I know about that character, that he has a giant Toblerone. No, in fact, so when I do final DLC characters, for a lot of these rosters, I wanted the final DLC characters to be ones that felt like a big deal, like ones that could kind of close out the game in a satisfying way and have like the final reps from each side be something that people could be really excited about. Except for Netflix versus Capcom, where I did something stupid for the Netflix side. And um and the last Netflix rep is Jade Wesker. um so Netflix there was a Netflix original series that was a Resident they made a Resident Evil series for Netflix. Um it got one season and then was immediately canceled. Uh but they added they added several original characters to the Netflix adaptation. Most of them being like clones of Wesker. Uh and one of the protagonists, Jade Wesker, is is one of Wesker's like clones slash daughters. Um, and she looks cool. She looks like a badass. And B, she has like twin pistols. Um, and there isn't any like notable Resident Evil character that wields dual pistols. I double checked with Sean, and so like I feel like yeah, you're adding her. I'm adding her to the Netflix side, and I feel like she could a have fun interactions with other Resident Evil characters. I almost put Wesker in this game just so he could interact with Jade Wesker, but he didn't make it in the final cut. Um, and yeah, that's the last Netflix character. I'm realizing now that that might feel really anticlimactic after all these other Netflix characters, but that's the decision specifically for versus Capcom. You just realize Arcane is on Netflix. Arcane was another one where I thought about it, but Riot Games would not play ball. Riot Games would not play ball, so I didn't include any Arcane characters. But then there's one character left, Enola Holmes for DLC 3. That's not a bad pick actually. I should have thought of Enola Holmes. Um and the last Capcom character I also did something stupid, and that is Pragmata Guy. So Pragmata is a game that's not out yet. Um like Capcom announced it at the beginning of the new generation as like a big PS5 game that's going to come out, and they keep delaying it. Like they keep delaying it by a year and then coming back the following year and saying we need more time. Um but like so here's a couple things. Like I'm imagining all these games I mentioned, right? I'm imagining that they come out within a couple years, right? They get added to the roster, or they you know, like it takes them like 2 or 3 years to make another versus Capcom game. Um, so I imagine that by the time the next versus Capcom game is out, and especially by the time they finish 2 seasons of DLC for that game, Pragmata will be out maybe, and maybe it won't be good. But you can't look at you can't look at this and tell me that this doesn't look like a Netflix character. You can't tell me that you could not imagine a Netflix original series having this robot man with the little girl riding on his back. You just can't. You cannot. So, uh imagining the timeline where Pragmata actually comes out, uh it would absolutely be in Netflix versus Capcom. Oh, you feel like there's a way to figure out a South Korean game show rep too? I actually thought about that. Like, I thought about Physical 100. I thought about I thought about I thought about the Circle, which is in South Korean, but I thought about Physical 100. I thought about Busted. But ultimately I couldn't figure out a way to work. I couldn't figure out a way to make that work. Got up off. We'll try to catch the rest on VOD. All right, cool. Yeah. Enjoy the VODs that I will make. I might be splitting them up into separate VODs for each roster build. Uh, and thanks for hopping in. Thanks for dropping by. Hope it would be kind of funny and sad if your recommendation is the one that I spin next. But thanks for dropping in. You can't believe Mikey Day from Is It Cake didn't make the cut. Yeah, sorry. Look, there's a lot of really great picks for this, but I have 42 slots total. I have 21 slots for the entirety of Netflix. I couldn't include everything that would make sense. But yeah, there you go. There's your full Netflix versus Capcom roster. Oh, As a Cake is terrible. You're saying that facetiously. Got it. Any guesses for other stage ideas? You're thinking Hill House from The Haunting of Hill House. That's a great recommendation. That's a great pick. Um, yeah, other Netflix stages. I On that note, actually, on the previous note, I think the house from the circle would be a stage. I think the circle from the circle would be a stage, and I think you could even uh you're in like the circle building, and you're like knocking each other through walls and falling into people's like circle homes, and you get to see like actual like circle guests like kind of guest star in the game as like background characters that are flipping out that fighting game characters have suddenly shown up in their house. um yeah, Arrested Development should have a stage. I wasn't really sure what to do about Arrested Development because it feels like, you know, one of like Arrested Development felt like a huge get for Netflix at the time, right? But Netflix really seems to have kind of like toned down its relationship to Arrested Development after seasons 4 and 5. Like they saw kind of the mixed reaction to that, and haven't really attached themselves as a brand to that anymore. I think they even like pulled I think they even pulled Arrested Development from their network, or like some episodes or something. Maybe I'm misremembering that. TBH, Netflix was a get for Arrested Development, not vice versa. In retrospect, that's kind of true, isn't it? Do Peacock versus Capcom, and it's just nothing because no one watches Peacock. LOL. You could have Sean Spencer and Gus from Psych, and that's all I know about Peacock. they did pull Arrested Development. Seasons 4 and 5 are essentially not available anywhere. Jesus, yeah. So obviously not in Netflix versus Capcom. We didn't get Queen Elizabeth II from The Crown as a character. You guys are just gonna keep doing this until I switch to the next screen, aren't you? All right, let's pull up the wheel. Let's pull the wheel back up. But yeah, I guess just one last sec to kind of take in the completed Netflix versus Capcom roster. Um, yeah, hopefully you thought that was cool. I This was a lot of fun to put together, and then I did 3 more rosters. Honestly, this roster is incredibly inspired. Like, it would have been easy to just pick 10 Stranger Things reps. Yeah, I try not to overdo reps, especially because I had so little space. And I felt like if I felt like it wouldn't be fair to just give myself a big ass roster to work with because that's not how the launch would work, you know? Like Cap I feel like especially on a new game like this, they wouldn't launch with a huge roster just because, it'd be really long and expensive to do that and they wouldn't take that risk right away. It was cool, good job. Thanks. All right, let's see what how likely do I think Netflix versus Capcom is as a concept? Honestly, I thought not at all initially. The more I put this list together, I still don't think it's objectively it's probably not that likely, right? Um, just because Netflix doesn't fully own almost all of the properties that they use. So it it'd be tough for them to negotiate with Capcom on all of their characters. Um However, on the flip side of things, Netflix is really wanting to get into the gaming space, and I feel like on paper, Capcom would approach Netflix and be like, "Hey, we want to make more versus Capcom games, but we want those games to be partially funded by the companies that we work with because we don't want to foot the entire bill for it." Netflix would be like, "Hey, yeah, if you can make a video game for us and also kind of combine that with marketing our properties, here's $10 million, you know?" Like, I think Netflix is one of the more likely companies to be on board. I just don't know if the logistics would work out and whether or not Capcom would want that. I mean, Marvel was a was a Western based property, was a Western based company, and they got Marvel, so. Monkey's Paw, Netflix versus Capcom is mobile exclusive. Honestly, Netflix is specifically in the mobile game space right now. I could see that Monkey's Paw curling. But I'd also see if that were the case, the roster would be a lot less robust than this. And you're just glad Glow is getting a shout out. Honestly, doing research on this made me want to watch Glow. I want to watch Glow now. I've never watched Glow. Okay,